Mr. Speaker, the honourable members have raised valid concerns and good suggestions on the Cybersecurity Bill. Let me address each area in detail. So some members, Mr. Zaki Muhammad, Mr. Pritam Singh, and Ms. San Siew Ling, asked how the bill will apply to systems that are providing essential services but located overseas. So the bill allows the Commissioner to designate CII, computers and computer systems necessary for the continuous delivery of essential services in Singapore. Overall, a significant majority of such systems are based wholly or partly in Singapore. Owners of CII that are partly located in Singapore will still have to comply with their obligations under the bill. Given Singapore's interconnectivity, it is inevitable that some computer systems serving important functions in Singapore are connected globally and may also be located wholly outside Singapore. These computer systems could also be operated by international organizations based abroad. While Singapore may be able to work with these international organizations to ensure the cybersecurity of the systems in question, we cannot control such systems by designating them as CII under the bill as they are outside our jurisdiction. There may also be potential conflicts with other countries' regulatory regimes. So to facilitate investigations of cybersecurity threats and incidents that may originate overseas, the government has made significant efforts to develop strong international partnerships and linkages with overseas computer emergency response teams or CERTs. CSA will work closely with its foreign counterparts for such investigations. Ms. Joan Pereira and Mr. Melvin Yong asked if the cybersecurity of CII would be affected if their owners choose not to impose requirements on the vendors or if such vendors were not regulated. CSA will work with the sector regulators and CII owners to define the boundaries of the systems that will be designated as CII on a case-by-case basis. CII owners are ultimately responsible for the cybersecurity of their respective CII. Many engage third-party vendors to support their CII. In deciding which vendors to engage and what conditions to impose on the vendors, CII owners should carry out the necessary risk assessments and due diligence to ensure that their obligations under the bill are complied with. CII owners will be required under the bill to conduct regular cybersecurity audits to ensure that their obligations are met. This provides an added layer of assurance that the CII will be in compliance with cybersecurity codes of practice and standards of performance as required under the bill. Ms. Dhanalakshmi suggested establishing an accredited framework for a national cybersecurity audit for CII stakeholders. So audit is an important aspect of good corporate governance. There are already multiple layers of IT audit regimes established within the 11 sectors. We are mindful that another layer of national cybersecurity audit could potentially result in CII stakeholders experiencing audit fatigue. For now, CSA plans to tap on existing sector audit regimes to ensure that the security measures are effective in protecting the CIIs. To ensure an acceptable standard of practice, CSA will provide audit guidance to auditors and track the audit outcomes. Mr. Darrell David asked how CII and essential services are determined, while Associate Professor Daniel Goh suggested that higher education and research institutions be considered essential services. So in arriving at the list of essential services in the first schedule, we took reference from Section 15A of the Computer Misuse and Cybersecurity Act, or CMCA. We also studied the definition of essential services in other jurisdictions before identifying a total of 11 sectors in Singapore delivering essential services. These sectors provide services that are essential to the national security, defense, foreign relations, economy, public health, public safety, or public order of Singapore. For each sector, CSA worked closely with the relevant sector regulator to identify the essential services within the sector, as well as the computers and computer systems that would be CII. CII identify as computers and computer systems that are necessary for the continuous delivery of essential services, the loss or compromise of which would have a debilitating effect on the availability of the essential services in Singapore. Higher education and research institutions are not considered essential services at this point in time. Nonetheless, we do not preclude that new essential services may arise in the future, and the Minister may amend the list of essential services in the first schedule if necessary. Mr. Patrick Tay asked if there's a mechanism in place whereby organizations can check with the CSA on whether they are CII owners. So there is no need for organizations to make self-assessment as to whether their computer or computer system fulfill the criteria of a CII. Prior to designating a computer or computer systems as a CII, CSA will consult its owner and the relevant sector regulator to identify whether it is responsible for the provision of any of the essential services listed in the first schedule. Organizations whose computers or computer systems are designated as CII will be notified in writing. CII owners will be given an opportunity to submit representations to the Commissioner if they disagree with the Commissioner's decision. They may also appeal to the Minister against the designation. However, the Minister's decision on an appeal will be final. So I'd like to assure members that the identification of CII is a considered and consultative process. MCI and CSA have already consulted with the sector regulators in identifying potential CII and engaged the potential CII owners twice since July 2016. Hence, potential CII owners would already know who they are. The process for identifying and designating new CII in the future will be similarly considered and consultative. So some members, Mr. Zaki Muhammad, Associate Professor Daniel Goh, Mr. Saktandi Supaat, and Ms. San Shulin asked whether the incident reporting and investigation requirements under the bill could be too onerous for CII owners, especially when they're potential victims of cyber attacks. So as mentioned in my opening speech, we do not intend to take action under the bill against CII owners for cybersecurity breaches, so long as they comply with the obligations thereunder. Given the importance of CII to Singapore, it is necessary to provide for their proactive protection. For example, Clause 14 requires CII owners to establish mechanisms and processes to detect cybersecurity threats and incidents in respect of the CII. CII owners are also required to promptly report to CSA cybersecurity incidents in relation to the CII and any computer or computer systems connected with the CII that are under their control. This will enable CSA to have better oversight of incidents happening across sectors and to take the necessary actions. There is no obligation for a CII owner to report a cybersecurity incident in respect of other infrastructure that he owns where such infrastructure is not connected to the CII. Under clauses 19 and 20, CII owners are required to cooperate with CSA during the investigation of cybersecurity threats and incidents. So I will elaborate on CSA's exercise of investigation powers later in my speech. Mr. Pritam Singh asked about the incident reporting threshold for CII owners. All CII owners, regardless of whether they are local or foreign companies, will need to report to CSA cybersecurity incidents that occur on or that affect their CII. As mentioned earlier, reporting cybersecurity incidents in respect of CII is a requirement under Clause 14, and any non-compliance without reasonable excuse will be an offence. The maximum penalty is $100,000 or 2 years imprisonment or both. A cybersecurity incident on a CII is defined as an act or an activity carried out without lawful authority on or through the CII that jeopardizes or adversely affects its cybersecurity. As Mr. Pritam Singh pointed out, details of what constitute a prescribed incident and the form and manner of reporting will be set out in subsidiary legislation. When exercising these powers, the Commissioner will be mindful that the owners of the computer systems in question are typically also victims. CSA will be providing further details to guide the CII owners in incident reporting, such as relevant forms and guidelines. On the other hand, Associate Professor Daniel Goh and Mr. Louis Ng call for mandatory reporting of all cybersecurity incidents to the CIS for more holistic protection of Singapore's cyberspace. Making the reporting of cybersecurity incident a requirement under the bill will be both resource intensive for CSA as well as companies in Singapore, especially our SMEs. Today, all companies, including owners of computer systems that are not CII, can already voluntarily report cybersecurity incident to CSA through SingCert. On top of this, the bill will provide CSA with powers to investigate cybersecurity threats and incidents pertaining to computer systems in Singapore, including computer systems that are not CII. Ms. Jessica Tan and Mr. Patrick Tay asked whether there are programs to help CII owners comply with their obligations under the bill, while Ms. Dhanalakshmi suggested that staff of organizations that own CII attend cybersecurity awareness programs. On the other hand, Ms. San Shuling and Ms. Desmond Chu asked about the time that CII owners will be given to implement cybersecurity measures. So to assist CII owners and their staff in getting ready for the implementation of the bill, CSA has developed a cybersecurity legislation initialization program for sector leads, also termed as CLIPS, CLIPS, to work with the CII sector regulators to prepare CII owners for their obligations under the bill. CLIPS will focus on establishing clarity on the roles and responsibilities between the sector regulators and the CII owners, and identifying and resolving any operational issue pertaining to the respective sectors. For example, this includes harmonizing policies and streamlining audits and incident reporting processes. The need to step up protection of CII is urgent, but where necessary, CSA will also give CII owners sufficient time to undertake preparations and planning prior to issuing the cybersecurity codes of practice or standards of performance for each sector. Assistant Commissioners, also known as ACs, are senior officers appointed from the 11 CII sectors and will be able to advise the Commissioner on the necessary requirements, taking into consideration the unique context and complexities of their respective sectors. Mr. Zaki Mohamad provided many useful suggestions to help CII owners meet their obligations under the bill, including sharing best practices and benchmarks and providing support for the R&D efforts. He also asked if the cybersecurity readiness of the CII owners will be benchmarked. So today, CSA assesses the cybersecurity readiness of the CII sectors and share this information with CII owners to help them improve the cybersecurity of their CII. So we will consider Mr. Zaki Mohamad's other suggestion. And I agree with Ms. Dhanalakshmi that we need to establish mechanisms to inform organizations if they are potential targets and advise them on precautionary measures that they could take. CSA currently shares information on cybersecurity threats and vulnerabilities with the CII sectors so that appropriate actions can be taken promptly. The CERTs overseeing specific sectors also issue advisories to the operators in their respective sectors. Several members, Mr. Pritam Singh, Mr. Zaki Mohamad, Mr. Saktendi Supat, Shan Shuling, and Mr. Desmond Chu asked about the costs that CII owners and other businesses may have to incur in implementing cybersecurity measures, while Mr. Patrick Tay asked whether there are any measures to ensure that compliance costs do not trickle down to consumers. So cybersecurity is a collective responsibility, and we must all do our part. Much of the cost of strengthening cybersecurity protection and enhancing responses to cybersecurity threats and incidents at the national level are borne directly by the government. And this includes resourcing national-level cybersecurity infrastructure and manpower, conducting regular cybersecurity exercises to validate cybersecurity incident management processes, and deploying National Cyber Incident Response Team, or NCIRT, to respond to a cybersecurity incident. Today, many CII owners have already put in place cybersecurity measures arising from regulations in sectors such as banking and finance and Infocom. The bill aims to strengthen the cybersecurity of CII in all sectors, including those that currently do not have any cybersecurity requirements. The requirements under the bill have been carefully scoped and are considered not too onerous. There will be cost implications for some CII owners who will have to strengthen the cybersecurity posture of their computer system to meet the requirements of the bill. To minimize regulatory costs, we will work with sector regulators to streamline the cybersecurity audit and incident reporting processes in order to harmonize cybersecurity requirements under the bill in their respective sectors wherever possible. It is also in the interest of CII owners and their vendors to spend adequately on cybersecurity measures. They should consider not only the upfront cost of such measures, but also the cost of potential breaches, including the intangible costs arising from any damage to your reputation. If organizations follow security by design practices, they will spend less overall in the long run to fix cybersecurity issues. So as Mr. Ganesh Rajaram mentioned, cybersecurity will actually help companies protect their bottom line. So therefore, on balance, MCI and CSA will not provide funding to offset the cost of CI obligations, which are regulatory requirements. Ms. San Suling and Mr. Saktendi Suparan asked how the Cybersecurity Bill is intended to interact with existing legislation that have cybersecurity or data protection requirements. Mr. Darrell David asked how the bill will be administered in view of existing agencies with cybersecurity rules. So the bill will apply concurrently with other laws and regulations enacted in Singapore, including existing sectoral laws. So for example, in the event of a cybersecurity incident, the Telecommunications Act will continue to govern licensees under that act for resulting telecommunications service disruptions, while the Personal Data Protection Act will continue to govern companies and individuals in the area of personal data breaches. As mentioned earlier, there are already some laws and regulations in Singapore that deal with various aspects of cybersecurity, such as in the banking and finance and infocom sector. In certain cases, such sectoral requirements may be more stringent or wider in scope than those in the Cybersecurity Bill. The Assistant Commissioner from the sector will play a key role in ensuring that CI owners do not face conflicting requirements under the Cybersecurity Bill and in sectoral regulations. This will help minimize the regulatory burden on CI owners. So I wish to clarify that we are not establishing a new agency under the bill. The Chief Executive for CSA will be appointed as the Commissioner, and he will be supported by CSA staff and the Assistant Commissioners who are intended to be senior officers from the sector regulators. So there will be no new agency. In many instances, the CI owners will interact with the ACs appointed from the sectors. So for example, CI owners in the banking and finance sector will interact with an Assistant Commissioner who will be a senior officer appointed from MAS for requirements under the bill. So I want to highlight that information shared with CSA under the Cybersecurity Bill cannot be used for enforcement action against the CI owners under sectoral regulation. Mr. Zaki Muhammad and Mr. Saktendi Suparan asked about the relationship between the Cybersecurity Bill and the Computer Misuse Act, or CMA. Mr. Darrell David asked how the government would deal with individuals who hack into a website to spread falsehood, while Mr. Henry Kwek asked for a re-examination of the penalties for misuse of access to data, especially if the perpetrators are cybersecurity professionals. So the Cybersecurity Bill and CMA are complementary, given that cybersecurity and cybercrime are closely related. The Cybersecurity Bill provides for investigation powers in clauses 19 and 20. These investigation powers apply only to the assessment of the impact of cybersecurity threats and incidents and to the prevention of further harm and further incidents from arising. The investigation of cybercrimes and the prosecution of their perpetrators are different issues covered by the CMA. Hence, it's important that the Cybersecurity Bill and the CMA are kept separate. The bill provides for the protection of CII in Singapore and ensures that CI owners maintain a necessary level of cybersecurity awareness, protection, and vigilance against cybersecurity threats and incidents. This would also make them less vulnerable to cybercrime. The unauthorized use to or modification of computer material and the unauthorized use of computer service are cybercrimes which are offenses under the CMA. The CMA, sir, is under the purview of the Ministry of Home Affairs and the police. Depending on the facts of the case, cybersecurity professionals who misuse the access to data may be prosecuted under the CMA. CSA, with the investigation powers under the Cybersecurity Bill, will work with MHA and the police to better protect computer systems in Singapore, especially CII, against cybersecurity incidents. However, neither the CMA nor this bill is intended to address the threat of fake news. So several MPs, Mr. Zaki Muhammad, Mr. Patrick Trey, Mr. Desmond Chu, Ms. Shan Shuling, Mr. Darrell David, Mr. Pritam Singh, and Mr. Saktendi Suparan asked about the broad investigation powers provided to the Commissioner by the bill, including whether such powers would curtail innovation or intrude into personal privacy and how such powers would be used judiciously. So as mentioned in my opening speech, the investigation powers under Part 4 of the bill are calibrated and their limits to the investigation powers that can be exercised depending on the severity of the threat or incident. How an incident will be classified depends on the facts of the case at hand. To be clear, all organizations, regardless of whether they're local or foreign, are required to cooperate with CSA during the investigation of cybersecurity threats and incidents pertaining to computers or computer systems in Singapore. So we recognize the need to balance operational expediency with the proportionate and judicious exercise of power. Investigation officers cannot investigate and remove equipment at any time. For example, the Commissioner's authorization is required before cybersecurity officers and authorized officers can exercise more intrusive investigation powers under Clause 20. There will be a governance process within CSA to ensure that the investigation powers are exercised responsibly and in accordance with the bill. CSA will also consider providing guidelines to the public to advise the owners of computer systems on what they should do during investigations of cybersecurity threats or incidents. Also, sir, the Commissioner will determine the appropriate measures to take during investigations of cybersecurity threats and incidents in consultation with the owner of the computer or computer system whenever possible. And to address Professor Madhav Mohan's point, this will be the case regardless of the type of computer system or technology involved, including cloud services. So, for example, the Commissioner may take possession of any computer or equipment to carry out further examination or analysis with the consent of the owner. However, if there's no consent from the owner, Clause 20, subsection 5, clearly sets out the condition that must be met before the Commissioner can authorize the exercise of this power. And the conditions are as follows. First, this is necessary for the purposes of the investigation. Second, there is no less disruptive method of achieving the purpose of the investigation. And third, this can only be done after consultation with the owner and having considered the importance of the computer to the business and operational needs of the owner, that the benefit of the action outweighs the detriment caused to the owner. Prior to deploying more intrusive investigation tools such as network scanning software, which are necessary when responding to cybersecurity incidents, CSA will, wherever possible, notify the computer system owners and follow appropriate protocols. So let me assure the House that the powers under the bill are not intended to intrude into privacy. The measures and requirements are mainly technical, operational, and procedural in nature. For example, CI owners may be required to implement network parameter defense devices such as firewalls, or to perform regular vulnerability scanning of their systems to identify potential loopholes. These measures are non-intrusive with respect to personal privacy. So I would like to assure members that any information required under the bill to deal with cybersecurity threats or incidents will be primarily technical and not personal in nature. For example, to aid in the detection of cybersecurity threats, information such as network logs, indicators of compromise, as well as system event and audit logs may be requested. Furthermore, the Commissioner's requests for information from CI owners are carefully scoped for specific purposes, such as information pertaining to the technical design and configuration of a CII. The Commissioner, sir, does not have direct or continuous access to the data of any CI owner. So as mentioned in my opening speech, the bill protects information disclosed to CSA under the bill by requiring persons who obtain it in the course of performing their functions or discharging their duties under the bill to keep it confidential, and by specifying the circumstances under which it can be disclosed. Misuse of the information by the Commissioner or other specified officers will be a criminal offense. With the exception of Clause 23, the bill does not require persons to disclose any information that is prohibited by any other law. The powers under Clause 23, which are for emergency cybersecurity measures, are not new and were taken from Section 15A of the CMCA. We have also further scoped Clause 23 to be tighter than the existing Section 15A of the CMCA to make clear that action can only be taken against serious and imminent threats and not just any cyber threat to the national security, essential services, defense, or the foreign relations of Singapore. Sir, the Minister is constrained by the language of Clause 23 when exercising his powers. His discretion is not unfettered. Mr. Chris D'Souza asked whether the bill would cover less mainstream cybersecurity services such as white hat or ethical hackers, while Mr. Melvin Yong asked if the ministry could consider encouraging a local community of white hats. On the other hand, Mr. Saktendi Supan asked whether cybersecurity freelancers need to be regulated, while some members, Mr. Zaki Muhammad and Ms. June Pereira, spoke about the missed opportunity and risks of not regulating individual cybersecurity professionals. So it's clear from the debate that there are diverse views on the issue of licensing cybersecurity service providers and growing the cybersecurity ecosystem. On the one hand, there's a call for even individual professionals to be regulated, while on the other hand, some express concerns about potential cost implications for businesses. So I've mentioned in my opening speech, for a start, the licensing framework is a deliberately light touch in view of the need to strike a good balance between industry development and cybersecurity needs. Furthermore, given the global nature of the cybersecurity industry, we recognize there are currently practical challenges to requiring individual cybersecurity professionals to be licensed, especially for service providers who deploy employees from overseas to serve clients in Singapore. So our focus is on more mainstream or mature cybersecurity services with the potential to cause significant impact on the overall cybersecurity landscape. We have identified two categories of services: penetration testing and managed security operations center, or SOC monitoring, as licensable cybersecurity services which are set out in the second schedule. Nonetheless, other cybersecurity services will still need to comply with other laws in Singapore, such as the CMA. All providers of licensable cybersecurity services, regardless of whether they are companies or individuals, directly engaged for such services or third-party vendors that support these companies will need to be licensed. However, sir, we do not intend to require companies to be licensed for providing such services to their related companies. Under the bill, no person may engage in the business of providing any licensable cybersecurity services to other persons except under and in accordance with a license granted or renewed under Clause 26. CSA will encourage consumers of such cybersecurity services to only procure services from licensed cybersecurity service providers by publishing a list of licenses online. Companies can also inform CSA of any unlicensed service providers. The proposed licensing framework is intended to reduce the safety and security risks that cybersecurity service providers can pose. The service providers are required to ensure that their key executive officers are fit and proper persons when applying for a license. Any applicant who is not fit and proper may be refused a license under Clause 26. Similarly, a cybersecurity service provider's license may be revoked or suspended if the service provider is no longer fit and proper, among other factors under Clause 30. In addition, sir, the service provider will be required to keep records on the cybersecurity services it has provided to its clients, including details of the employee providing the service for not less than 3 years for accountability and traceability in the event of foul play. Mr. Henry Quek also asked whether the government could create a certification system that favors cybersecurity professionals who have a vested interest in Singapore. So CSA intends to work with the industry and professional association partners to establish voluntary accreditation and certification regimes for cybersecurity service providers and professionals to raise the quality of cybersecurity services and further improve their standing. So, for example, in partnership with CSA and the Association of Information Security Professionals, AISP, CRESS, a non-profit international organization, established a Singapore chapter to introduce penetration testing certifications and accreditation in Singapore. Given the nascent nature of our industry, we should remain open and take reference from internationally recognized standards where possible. It would not be in our interest to favor only those professionals who have a vested interest in Singapore. Likewise, we would want our local cybersecurity professionals to be recognized under markets based on their professional expertise and experience. The regulatory regime needs to strike a balance between security needs and the development of a vibrant cybersecurity ecosystem. This is the best balance that we can find at this point in time. MCI and CSA will be engaging the industry in working out the implementation details for licensing, including licensing conditions for licensable cybersecurity service providers. So we also continue to take in feedback from the industry on the licensing regime as the cybersecurity ecosystem evolves. So several MPs, Mr. Zaki Mohammed, Ms. Jessica Tan, Mr. Henry Quek, Mr. Melvin Yong, and Mr. Desmond Chu asked about the government's plans to grow and develop the pool of cybersecurity professionals. I would like to assure members that Singaporeans will continue to be an important part of our cybersecurity workforce. The government is collaborating with the industry to grow the cybersecurity workforce in Singapore. For example, under the Cybersecurity Associates and Technologies Program, or CSAT, CSA and IMDA partner the industry and the institutes of higher learning to attract new graduates and convert existing professionals from related fields to a career in cybersecurity. Under CSA's Cybersecurity Professional Scheme, CSPS, officers will be recruited and trained in areas such as cyber forensic and vulnerability assessment before being deployed to public agencies overseeing CIS sectors to assist companies in these sectors with their cybersecurity capabilities. Associate Professor Daniel Goh asked about the potential to build greater synergy in civilian and military cybersecurity capabilities. Today, CSA already works closely with MINDEF on cybersecurity matters. For example, CSA can call on MINDEF for support when responding to cybersecurity incident, as MINDEF is part of NCERT. CSA and MINDEF also collaborate in areas such as the sharing of operational lessons and threat information, technology cooperation, and participation in joint exercises such as Exercise Cyber Nights 2017. And last year, sir, MINDEF announced the establishment of a new cyber defense vocation. I understand they are looking into better harnessing the cybersecurity skills of national servicemen to defend our military networks and contribute to the national cybersecurity effort. CSA and MINDEF will continue to find more ways to cooperate in this area, sir. So I also agree with Mr. Patrick Tay that we need to bring together various partners to assist cybersecurity professionals in areas such as continuing learning and career development. We need to continue to upgrade our cybersecurity defenses and training as cyber attacks are getting more sophisticated. CSA, through its academy, is leading efforts to boost the skills of cybersecurity professionals working in the government and CIS sectors such as energy and healthcare. On this, sir, I look forward to the labour movement support. Sir, Ms. San Shuling asked how the bill would take into account global developments and evolving standards to tackle cybersecurity threats, while Mr. Azmun Ahmad spoke about the need to regularly review the regulatory framework given the fast-changing internet landscape. So in formulating this bill, we studied cybersecurity legislation which other countries have implemented or are considering. Our bill has taken into consideration these international developments. And during the implementation of the bill, we will take reference from internationally recognized standards when developing codes of practice and standards of performance for the different sectors. We also recognize that the environment that we operate in may change with changes in industry and technological trends. Therefore, we will need to keep abreast of international developments and review and adjust our laws to address new and emerging issues moving forward. Professor Madhav Mohan asked what MCI and CSA have done with respect to cybersecurity internationally and regionally. So CSA has been an active participant at international fora and discussions to develop international cyber norms, including at the United Nations. Bilaterally, we have signed MOUs with countries such as the US, UK, France, and Australia on cybersecurity cooperation and capability development. Regionally, we have launched the ASEAN Cyber Capacity Building Program with ASEAN member states and dialogue partners to build cybersecurity capacity in the region. So we will continue to pursue these efforts on this front, sir. So several members, Mr. Patrick Tay, Mr. Saktendi Supat, Mr. Louis Ng, Ms. Joan Pereira, Mr. Melvin Yong, and Mr. Darryl David, asked whether there are plans to assist businesses, including our SMEs, and to educate the public on how to prevent and respond to cybersecurity threats and incidents. So through the Cybersecurity Awareness Alliance, CSA works closely with representatives from public and private sector organizations and industry associations to reach out to businesses, including SMEs, and to promote awareness and the adoption of cybersecurity practices. This is done through organizing cybersecurity talks and conferences and developing online cybersecurity resources which are available on CSA's Go Safe Online website. CSA also publishes an annual Singapore Cyber Landscape Report for public awareness. In addition, SMEs can also tap on IMDA's SMEs Go Digital program to adopt cybersecurity solutions and seek technical advice on cybersecurity and other digital concerns from IMDA's SME Digital Tech Hub. Besides this initiative, businesses and members of the public can also sign up for SingCert's advisories and alerts on cybersecurity threats and incidents. So for example, sir, when the dealing routers were found to have security vulnerabilities in September last year, SingCert and the Info Communications Singapore Computer Emergency Response Team, ISG-CERT, under IMDA issued a joint advisory which contained information on the affected products and the steps that affected consumers should take. CSA also collaborated with the PDPC to develop a series of student activity books to raise awareness of the importance of cybersecurity and personal data protection among our students. The Silver Infocom Junctions, an initiative by IMDA, provides seniors with Infocom training which includes cybersecurity. So we will continue to work with our partners in our efforts to raise cybersecurity awareness among the public. Mr. Zaki Muhammad asked whether the government could consider cybersecurity as another pillar of total defense. So CSA has been working with MINDEF to incorporate cybersecurity messages in each of the existing 5 pillars of total defense. On this, I agree with Ms. Jessica Tan that people are the weakest link, but also our strongest asset. So if we each do our part to use our computer systems and devices responsibly, collectively, we can help to protect Singapore's cyberspace. So many of the issues raised by the members are among those that we have considered in developing a cybersecurity bill that takes into account the interests of the different stakeholders and Singapore's needs. MPs also raised questions that do not relate directly to the bill, but rather to the larger cybersecurity ecosystem that we are developing. I understand their concerns and agree that these are important issues to address. So my ministry will continue to work with stakeholders from the public and private sector to ensure that our laws remain robust and relevant, and beyond this bill, to raise the level of cybersecurity awareness and develop the cybersecurity ecosystem in Singapore. As Mr. Ganesh Rajaram mentioned, cybersecurity is not just the government's responsibility. Everyone needs to play a role, including members in this chamber. Members of the House will also agree that it is an important legislation to protect our critical information infrastructure and safeguard our essential services from disruption by cyber attacks. And I hope that we can support the bill. So lastly, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank my colleagues from MCI and CSA for working on this landmark bill. In particular, sir, I would like to make special mention of Mr. Cheng Ho Kiat, Director of the Cybersecurity and Resilience Division at MCI, who passed away less than 2 weeks ago. In his time at MCI, Ho Kiat made significant contribution towards the strengthening of cybersecurity in Singapore. He played a pivotal role in developing the national cybersecurity strategy and this bill. Thank you, sir.
The question is that the bill be now read a second time. As many as of the opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Cybersecurity Bill.
Committee stage what day?
Now, sir, I beg to move that the Parliament will immediately resolve itself into a committee on the bill.